Okay, day 2 notes, we're going to find the distance from a point 1, 0 to the line y equals negative x plus 3. So before we go through the steps for the distance, let's just graph those two things and see what we're looking at here. So we can graph point 1, 0. There's our point. And then we will graph y equals negative x plus 3. To graph this one right here, what's my slope? Try it again. What's my slope? Negative 1. Thanks. What's my y-intercept? 0, 3. So I'm going to begin at 3, and then I'm going to go down 1 over 1, down 1 over 1. We have to find the distance from that point to this line. Now, finding the distance we learned about in section 3.4. This is 3.5. We learned about it in section 3.4. From the point to the line, there's something specifically that I have to look for. Can I find the distance by going right here and saying, oh, it's 2? Yes? Am I done? There's all this space. What do you think? Am I done? Probably not that easy. Do you guys remember anything about finding the distance? Something it has to be. 2? What? Yeah, we are going to use the distance formula, but when I look on the graph and I think about finding the distance from this point to this line, can I use any line I want? Can I use that line? Can I use this line? Which line specifically do I need to use? Because there's infinitely many lines that go from this point to the green line. There's infinitely many lines. Which of all of those infinitely many lines do I need to use? Oh, look, I have my 3-4 notes handy. Which one of those lines do I need? Stephen, what do we know about the line? What's it have to be? Has to be a perpendicular segment. It has to be perpendicular. And when we did this exercise in the notes, we realized that was perpendicular. They gave you 3 lines, so you had to pick the line that was perpendicular, that was marked perpendicular. So, I can guess where it is, but I need to find sure. So what I first need to do is I need to find the line that is perpendicular, green line, and passes through the orange point. So my first step is I'm going to find perpendicular line that passes through 1, 0. To find the perpendicular line that passes through 1, 0. So this is what you did for your assignment. Denise, you did your assignment, right? What should I do to find the perpendicular line? What's something I need? We are going to use y equals mx plus b, but I'm going to leave something I want first. But we are going to use y equals mx plus b. John, you did your assignment, right? Do you know something I need? Not yet. No. That's when I go to do the distance. I'm talking about what we did for our assignment last night, or whenever you did it. 3-5.
You put in you substitute.
We had to find, before we could do y equals mx, we had to find something. This is our assignment from this week. We have to find the slope. We first need the slope, and we need a point. We need the slope. Rakaya, do you know what I need to do for this slope? Opposite something? Yeah. Opposite reciprocal. I just couldn't hear you. So we need the opposite reciprocal slope. So the slope of this green line is -1. I need opposite of that, and I need to reciprocate it. Opposite means plus or minus. So if this one is minus, my opposite reciprocal slope is going to be plus. You can write it, or you could just not write it. I'm going to write it just because we're talking about it. And then we also have to reciprocate it. So if this one is -1/1, when I reciprocate that, what do I get? Positive 1/1, or just positive 1. So now we have our opposite reciprocal slope. We also need a point. Emily, what point should I use? I wrote it in my directions with my handwriting. Ordered pair. Which? Ordered pair. X, Y. Which one? In my handwriting, I wrote the point. Is she just saying 0? I can't hear you. So 0 is not an ordered pair. It's got to be in parentheses with two numbers. 1, 0. What are you saying? Oh, no. I'm saying a point. Just a point that it passes through. So we want 1, 0. So we're going to use this slope and this point, and that's how we're going to find the y-intercept. So remember, this is the xy, and this is our m. So we're going to plug all that stuff in. So 0 equals our m is 1 times our x is 1 plus b. So 0 equals, what's 1 times 1? Okay, just checking. Make sure nobody said 2. You know you wanted to. All right, we got 0 equals 1 plus b, subtract 1, and b equals -1. So my equation is going to be y equals our slope 1, x, plus our b, which is -1. And you know I don't need this 1 right here. I'm just writing it because I'm saying it. I want to make sure everybody heard it. Okay, that's not our final answer. I don't even know why I boxed that in. That's not our final answer. This is the equation of that line. So now we know where we know the equation of that line. Now we could actually draw it if we needed to. But we don't actually need to draw it, but if we needed to, that's what we could do, is we could draw the line. But we need to find just the line segment that connects the point to the line. We need to find the distance of that line segment. So to find the distance of that line segment, I need 2 points. I need the point that it starts at, and I need the ending point. Can you look at the graph and tell me the ending point? Somebody yell out the ending point for me. Raylan, can you yell at that ending point? I think you're not looking very carefully, girl. 2, 2 would be here. T1. Okay. And then we would find the distance between those. But I'm going to tell you right now, I'm going to show you more steps before we actually do that. This would be pretty easy if the graph is really easy to tell, like this one was. We will do the distance formula with those in a second. But I'm going to show you the way that you're going to do it if you don't have a graph, the way that you would do it that uses algebra rather than graphic. Okay? So what we would do is we need to find this point that the two lines have in common. And to find that point, we're going to take our equations and find the equations when they are both equal to the same thing. We're going to do something that you learned in Algebra 1 called solving a system. And this is actually something that is used in all math, and it is used in like business application. You're not going to see it from this graph, but I promise you this is something that is used a lot. So to solve this system, we're going to have two equations, and the two equations would be each line. Y equals negative x plus 3, and y equals 1x minus 1. So we have our two equations. This is a system. We're going to try to find out when they are both equal to each other. So I'm going to use either the substitution or the transitive property for a moment. If negative x plus 3 equals y, and y equals x minus 1, then what can we tell about these two right here? Let me try that again. If negative x plus 3 equals y, and y equals x minus 1, what can you conclude about these two sides? They are equal to each other, right? So I'm going to say negative x plus 3 equals x minus 1. And we're going to solve this equation. So we set them equal. And then we're going to solve for x. We set them equal, then we're going to solve for x. So I'm going to add x to both sides. Get 3 equals 2x minus 1. Add 1 to both sides. Get 2x equals 4. Divide by 2. X equals 2. So that is the x value. And then I ran out of space, so I'm going to come up here. Plug in x to find y. So we can plug in x in either equation or both equations. We've got y equals 2 minus 1 and y equals negative 2 plus 3. So that's both equations. You don't really need to have both equations, but I'm doing both equations for fun. And I either get that y equals 1 or I get y equals 1. Good. Y must equal 1. So we have x equals 2, y equals 1. Now, remember Raylan told me the end point was at 2, 1. We could see that from the graph. And I just showed you algebraically how we can find it. We're going to practice algebraically today. And sometimes it's not so easy to find it. And then when you go to Algebra 2, you'll do this stuff. Remember? Did it already this year? Do you remember doing that, Aaron? This year already? Yeah. So they'll do it again next year too. All right, so we have the two ordered pairs. Now we do our distance formula. If you forget the distance formula, it does have to do with a squared plus b squared equals c squared. You find the difference between the x's, so x2 minus x1, then you square it. Then you find the difference between the y's, and then you square it. You guys remember we had somebody just hanging out in our class last week? Yeah, so he's in college and he's studying to become a math teacher, so he came and sat in our class just to hang out for a couple days. When I was talking about the distance formula last week, he was like, oh my gosh, they don't know the distance formula? I'm like, well, yeah, they're just learning it. They're sophomores, but it's something that he's used over and over and over again that he couldn't fathom that you guys didn't know it. So just so you know, this gets used over and over and over again, that at some point you should know it. If not today. Okay. Just heads up. All right, so we're going to plug in the stuff. Let's see. Second x is 2 minus 1 squared plus, then we do 1 minus 0 squared. That's 1 squared plus 1 squared. 1 plus 1 is square root of 2. Does that look like it's square root of 2 long? Or do you have any clue what square root of 2 is? Probably not, right? How can I find out what square root of 2 is? How can I find out what square root of 2 is? Does that look like it could be a little bit over 1 unit long? Like 1 unit long would be here. 1 unit long would be each side of this square. And the diagonal, I hope you can see if I make it even bigger, is an approximately a square. The diagonal of the square is much longer than the side. I think something long, yeah. All right. So let's do all of that again. We've got steps written down. Find the distance from the point 64 to the line equals x plus 4. You have to graph it so that we have something to like go off of just to make everything. 6, 4. 6, 4. And then the line y equals x plus 4. Is that up there? Sound like it was up there. Okay, so we need to first find the equation of that line that passes through the point and goes perpendicular to the orange line. We need to find that line first. So step 1, we're going to find the perpendicular line. In order to find that perpendicular line, what information do we need? Brian? The reciprocal?
Yeah.
Of
The other one.
the reciprocal of what, hon?
The second one.
4.
Like, oh no, the one, no. I don't know.
So he's on the right track. Reciprocal is part of it. Lynn, what are we looking for? Said something about a reciprocal. Opposite of what? No, so you can't do opposite reciprocal of an ordered pair. What is it, David? The slope. Which slope? Okay, so I'm going to look at the slope over here. I'm going to look at m equals 1. And we're going to do the opposite reciprocal of this slope. So the first thing you're going to do is find the perpendicular slope. The opposite reciprocal. If you aren't writing down the steps, when I call on you, you're not going to know what to say. So we're looking for the perpendicular slope, which is the opposite reciprocal of 1 over here. Opposite means plus minus. So this one is plus. What do I do? Minus. And then we take this slope, which is 1 over 1, and I reciprocate it. That just means flip it. It's still 1. That one's easy. We'll start out easy. Then we need a point. Emily, I'm going to call on you again. What point should I be using? 6, 4 is correct. Good. So we're using the opposite reciprocal slope. We're using the point, and we're going to plug that into y equals mx plus b. So my xy, the y is 4, equals m is negative 1, x is 6, plus b. 4 equals negative 6 plus b. Add 6, and get b equals 10. So y equals negative x. That should be the equation of this line. So that's the first step. We're going to find the equation of this line. Then our second step is we're going to solve a system. The system is going to be the original line and the new line we just found. We have to find when these are equal. So we use our translate. If x plus 4 equals y, and y equals negative x plus 4, they equal each other. Set equal. X plus 4 equals negative x plus 10. Solve. So I'm going to add x to both sides. 2x plus 4 equals 10. Subtract 4. 2x equals 6. Divide by 2. Get x equals 3. Then we plug in x to find y. So I plug in x into these equations. Y equals, what's x? 3 plus 4, or y equals negative 3 plus 10. So 7 or 7 looks like y equals 7. So what ordered pair does this line pass through on the orange line? What ordered pair does it go through? 3, 7. And if we actually looked at it, if we have the slope correct, we should be able to find it. It's just really hard to look at the graph and get that perpendicular line if you're using slope. So this point is 3, 7. So now we have our first point. So we're going to find the distance now. That's what it was for. Distance. Our first point is 6, 4, and our new point is 3, 7. And we do our distance formula. Subtract our x's, 3 minus 6 squared, plus subtract our y's, 7 minus 4 squared. We get negative 3 squared plus 3 squared, which is 9 plus 9, which is square root of 18. Did you get it already? Did you simplify it? Okay, so then we need to simplify square root of 18 like this, where we try to think of a divides out of 18 if there is one. So Matthew, what did you come up with? 9 times 2. Good. So 9 is a perfect square. When we take the square root of 9, we get 3. And then square root of 2 you cannot break down. It's already as simplified as possible. So our distance is going to be 3 square root 2. Or if we type it in the calculator, it'll be approximately 4.24. So find the distance from point -1, 6 to y equals -2x. What's my y-intercept for this one? Yeah, 0, 0. Go -2, +1, -2, +1. Oh my gosh, did you guys like my, when you did your assignment over the weekend, did you like my big apology note? I totally didn't have one like that. That's what happens when I make up my own stuff. This time I didn't make them up. I took them from somewhere else, so hopefully they're better. All right, we're going to find the distance. So our first step, Alex, what's our first step going to be? Sorry, dear. I didn't even look. I just called your name. What's going to be step 1? Yep, I need to find the opposite reciprocal of this slope, -2. So we're going to do opposite reciprocal slope. If this is negative, it's going to be positive. And what is the reciprocal of -2 over 1? Positive 1 over 2. Reciprocate and change the sign. We also need a point. Cameron, what point am I going to use? Bless you. I didn't hear you, I'm sorry. -1, 6. Okay, and then we do y equals mx plus b. So y is 6 equals m is 1/2, x is -1 plus b. You might not think this is easier to do it that way, but I have a little trick that makes my life easier when I have fractions. And I've done this trick on homework assignments before, so you may have seen it in my work, but most of you have not done this on your own. I'm going to write this as 13/2 instead of 6.5. You know, I took 2 times 6 plus 1 over 2. And you remember that from elementary school? Okay. And then we need to write the equation. Y equals 1/2 x plus 13/2. Okay, so I did my first step. Write the equation. Stephen, do you know what I need to do after I have this new equation? Solve the system. That's perfect. So we're going to write the two equations, y equals -2x and y equals 1/2 x plus 13/2 with each other. And we're going to use the transitive property. And Austin, how can I write my next step? Austin, did you hear me say your name? What can I do next after I have these two equations equal to y? What did we do on this one? What did we do on this one? Where I had them both equal to y. What was our next step? Well, we're going to sit here until you look at it. and try. What did I write right here? Austin. Read the words. What are the symbols? Oh gosh, move up. Hey, by the way, I switch your seats around, and I do understand that not everybody's placed somewhere they can see very well. So the seat that's next to David today is blank, meaning anybody can sit there if they need to. Plus, we don't fill up the whole classroom, so you can move closer. When I have y equals x plus 4 and I had y equals negative x plus 10, what did I do in my next step? I set them equal. See what I did? So can you tell me what to do on this one here? What could I write?
Negative 2x equals 1/2 x plus 13/2.
Perfect, thank you. All right, so we set them equal to each other. Now we're going to solve. This is the tiny little fun trick that I'm about to show you. If you don't know this trick already, it's fantastic. Anybody in here love dealing with fractions? Okay. If we take both sides of the equation, you're allowed to do whatever you want to an equation, as long as you do it to both sides. If I multiply everything by 2, if I multiply everything by 2, 2 times negative 4x, 2 times a half is 1x. 2 times 13 halves is 13. Like the 2's will cancel out in the denominators. No more fractions. Now I could just solve a much easier equation. Next, subtract x from both sides. Oh, this is an awful equation, actually. We get minus 5x equals 13. Divide by negative 5. X equals negative 13/5. Or, no, you guys like decimals, so I'll change it into a decimal. Okay, what's you got to plug it in to find y? I'm just using my calculator because of time. So it looks like our ordered pair is negative 2.6 comma 5.2. And then our original ordered pair is negative 1.6. So here's an example where it would be really difficult to figure out that point from the graph. When we do our distance formula, subtract our x's, subtract our y's, and I've done something wrong because that can't be right. Oh, this is not negative 5.2. That's what I did wrong. And I just typed this in my calculator. There's no way I could simplify that. There's just terrible decimals. I just used my calculator for this, and I got approximately 1.79. And that looks about right. It's almost 2 blocks. All right, I'm not going to finish the last one because it's the exact same thing, just 4 times. I have a 6-question assignment for you. The only thing different about the assignment from this is the line might be set up like 2x minus y equals 4, something like this. Oh, sorry. The line might be, original line might be given to you in this format. So how would this change the way you did it if the line was given to you in this format? Lynn? Yeah, I would just have to rearrange this first by subtracting 2x. And then dividing everything by -1 to get y equals 2x minus 4. And then I would use this equation for everything that we just did. So that's the only difference. And not every question is like that, too. I think I gave you 2 questions that were not in the right order that you need to work on. But all the rest of it's the same.